June 14th, 2026. Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. 9:17 in the morning. The sky above Recreio dos Bandeirantes was clear. A perfect Sunday. The kind of morning that feels like nothing in the world could possibly go wrong. The ocean glittered somewhere to the west. The streets below were still slow with the laziness of a weekend. And somewhere above it all, two helicopters were cutting through that blue, unbothered sky, on a collision course that nobody saw coming. In one of those helicopters sat a 32-year-old man from Santa Cruz, California. A man with a bowl cut that looked like it had been placed on his head by someone who had never seen a human being before. A man who rode scooters on stage. Who made music that sounded like heartbreak filtered through a carnival. Who built an entire identity out of being impossible to ignore and even harder to understand. His name was Oliver Tree Nickel, and he had exactly seconds left to live. Oliver Tree did not arrive in this world quietly. Born on June 29, 1993. In Santa Cruz, California, he was the kind of child who seemed to be operating on a frequency that everyone else around him could not quite tune into. He picked up music early. Disturbingly early. And by the time most kids his age were still figuring out who they were, Oliver was already building something entirely his own in the San Francisco Bay Area underground scene, performing under the stripped-down name tree, releasing his first EP, Demons, in 2013 through RNS Records into a world that was not yet ready for him. But Oliver Tree was never interested in waiting for the world to catch up. In 2016, everything shifted. A collaboration with producer Wathan on the single When I'm Down cracked something open. The internet noticed. Atlantic Records noticed. Within a month, Oliver Tree Nickel had a record deal, a new name, and a vision so specific and so fully formed that it almost didn't seem real. The bowl cut, the oversized vintage tracksuits, the scooter, the deliberately exaggerated persona that walked the razor's edge between sincerity and satire so perfectly that even his most devoted fans were never entirely sure which side they were standing on. That ambiguity was the point. It always was. The music came fast, and it came hard. The 2018 EP Alien Boy pushed him deeper into the cultural conversation. But it was 2020's debut album Ugly is Beautiful that announced Oliver Tree as something genuinely different in the American music landscape. The album reached the top of Billboard's Top Rock and Alternative Albums chart. It was raw and strange and melodic and broken all at once. The sound of someone processing pain through the loudest, most colorful filter they could find. Then came Life Goes On in 2021. Then Miss You in 2022. A collaboration that crossed every genre boundary he had ever respected and reached listeners who had never considered themselves Oliver Tree fans until the moment that song hit them somewhere they weren't expecting. By the time his fourth studio album, Love You Madly, Hate You Badly, arrived in 2026, Oliver Tree had accumulated over 15 million followers on TikTok, a passionate global fan base, and a reputation as one of the most genuinely original alternative artists of his entire generation. He was 32 years old. He was in the middle of what he called the world's first world tour. He had just performed in Buenos Aires, Argentina, on June 4th. And on the Saturday before everything ended, he posted a video to his Instagram, laughing, alive, playing soccer in a Brazilian neighborhood, soaking in a country that had welcomed him with open arms. Nobody who watched that video knew it would be the last one. Sunday morning came the way Sunday mornings do in Rio de Janeiro, warm and unhurried, and full of the kind of light that makes everything look slightly more beautiful than it actually is. Oliver Tree boarded a helicopter alongside 4 other people. Pilot Alexandra Souza took the controls. Passengers Lucas Vidnale, Gaspar Prim, known online as Gaspy, a popular YouTuber whose own community would be devastated within hours. The helicopter lifted. The city spread out below them, enormous and golden and indifferent. Somewhere in that same sky, a second helicopter was moving. A single pilot, a routine flight. 2 aircraft, 2 trajectories, and a margin of error so thin it was almost invisible. Until it wasn't. The collision happened fast. It always does. 2 helicopters closing in on each other over the neighborhood of Recreio dos Bandeirantes, a moment of contact, and then the kind of silence that follows catastrophe before the noise begins. One helicopter dropped. It fell into the parking lot of an electric vehicle dealership in the western zone of Rio de Janeiro and exploded on impact, igniting a fire that consumed nearly 20 cars. and demanded 3 to 4 times more water than a standard vehicle fire to extinguish, because electric vehicle fires do not surrender easily, and neither, it seemed, did the wreckage of everything that had just been lost. All 6 people aboard both helicopters were killed. There were no survivors. Rio de Janeiro's civil police launched an investigation immediately. Footage of the collision spread across social media within minutes. 2 helicopters visible in frame, closing in, contact, and then the drop, and the smoke rising in a thick, dark column above a city that had no idea it had just lost something irreplaceable. The grief came in waves, and it came from everywhere. Whitney Cummings, actress and comedian and one of the people who had known Oliver Tree as a human being rather than a persona, wrote words that cut through every tribute that followed. She said he was pure love. She said he was the best version of what an artist and a person could and should be. She said there was no silver lining, that the world had lost a giant. She was not wrong. Fans began circulating his music video for the song Flowers, noting with a particular haunted attention that grief produces in people that something in the imagery felt eerily prophetic. The kind of observation that says more about how desperately humans search for meaning in senseless loss than it does about any actual premonition. Oliver Tree did not predict his death. He was simply an artist whose work was dark enough and human enough that it could hold the weight of whatever feeling a person needed to pour into it. That was the gift. That was always the gift. Oliver Tree Nickel was 32 years old. He had 4 studio albums, millions of devoted followers across every platform, and a creative vision so singular that nobody has yet figured out exactly what category to place him in, which is perhaps the most honest tribute anyone could offer.